Let's bring in Al Jazeera security and law contributor Faiza Patel. Palestinian leaders had promised that they wanted to bring charges as soon as they became members of the ICC against Israel. Why are they backing off on that promise now?
So there's three ways a case can go forward before the ICC. So the first is if the UN Security Council actually refers the case and says, hey, ICC, take a look at this. And that's what happened with Darfur. That's not likely to happen here, obviously, because the US has a veto in the Security Council. The second way is for the prosecutor to herself initiate an investigation. And when
that's already happened.
And that's already happened. So that's already been started. She's looking into the issue. The third thing is that a country can itself refer a situation to the prosecutor and say, you need to look at this situation. So number two is already happening. It's already underway. Now the Palestinians could, add on to that and say, request the prosecutor to look at this situation, and that's what people are waiting to see whether that actually happens.
The ICC's been around for 17 years. Very few investigations have really gone forward seriously. So is there any likelihood that this will move forward anytime in the near future?
Well, define near.
Well, clearly in the ICC terms, it may mean a decade.
I mean, what you see with the war crimes tribunals, and we've seen this with the tribunal for Rwanda and for the former Yugoslavia as well, is that these investigations take a long time. I mean, think about it. You have a court, investigators, prosecutors sitting in The Hague. All of the evidence, all of the witnesses are located in some faraway place. Generally a war-torn country or other kind of conflict zone. It takes a long time for them to gather all of the evidence they need to move forward.
Now, could this backfire for the Palestinians? Because we heard about the Amnesty International report that said that serious violations happened, especially when it comes to Hamas. So could this lead to investigations of Palestinian leaders, especially Hamas leaders?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the Palestinians cannot refer to the ICC, only look at Israel and don't look at what our side did. They can only refer the situation as a whole, and already the prosecutor is looking into the situation as a whole. And I think, given how politically sensitive this particular situation is, they are going to be ultra careful to look at all sides of the conflict.
Well, talking about politically sensitive, Israel did not want the Palestinian Authority to become a member state of the ICC. They have observer status at the UN. They've joined a number of other international treaties, but they don't want anything that has to do with Palestinian statehood until a peace process is someday achieved. Does this hurt that? Could this backfire in that way against the Palestinian Authority?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, the way that the Palestinians have proceeded is to try and change the kind of legal facts on the ground, right? So they've attained observer state status in the United Nations General Assembly a couple of years ago. As you mentioned, they've joined, most of the major treaties. So they're trying to establish a legal reality in which they are a state.
Right.
In the peace process, I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know. It doesn't really seem to be going anywhere at this time. So how this actually backfires on that, I don't really
Increased Israeli settlements?
Well, they just announced, a batch of new settlements just days ago.
And as you know, Israel withheld tax revenues
That's right.
for the Palestinian Authority, and they had started to release those funds. Could they go back to not providing? This is important money for the Palestinians to pay their government officials and for to govern in the West Bank.
Well, that's actually, I think, a very realistic concern, and that's obviously a risk that the Palestinians have decided to take, right? They knew that the Israelis were going to do that, and they did, and they still went ahead with this. The other risk, of course, is that the United States might cut off, aid to the Palestinians, and that would also be a big problem for them. And there are provisions in the law which suggest that, once the case in the ICC reaches a certain stage, that aid would be cut off to the Palestinian Authority, and that could be really problematic for them as well.